Good morning from Intranets Reloaded Boston. I'm Sarah and I'm here with Henry Amm from Adenin Technologies. Good morning, Henry.
Good morning.
How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Could you please shortly introduce yourself and your experience related to Intranets?
Sure. My name is Henry Amm. I'm the director of the digital assistant platform at Adenin Technologies. And we are exhibiting here this week to show all of the attendees what we have in store. Should be great.
I'm sure about that. And which trends and challenges are affecting the digital workplace right now, from your point of view?
That's a good question. I think digital workplaces are a marketing term. Not many, many vendors will say they have one, but it's really just an old intranet in a new, old wine in new skins in part. And I think that is something that kind of leads to a fatigue that the end user has. They don't really sometimes buy into it anymore, that it's going to be the holy grail of innovativeness to use the next new intranet innovation. So, and this is where we were really caught in that same conundrum as a vendor of intranets, that we saw our users not really being all that satisfied, the product not living all the way up to the high expectations that marketing departments set. And that's where we, sat down and try to rethink what is in intranets that was the original mission, how good are intranets in achieving that mission, and if they're not very good, why? Those are tough questions to ask, because everybody would agree that the original mission of intranets from the 90s is great, to have a central starting point to your day, to come back to the internet throughout the day to find anything, find what your next task is. So how can we achieve this goal from the 90s, but with modern tools, completely rethinking the experience? And that's what we've set out to do with Adenin Digital Assistant. Ah,
I see. Maybe you could highlight some key points of your presentation, since that's going to be your topic also today, about unlearning the intranets. Why this topic, and what's your view on that?
Sure. Basically, much in the same breath of creating a digital workplace, intranets are boring. Everybody has an intranet, but no one really likes to use their intranet. In fact, usually the people that find the intranet to be poor or very poor outnumber the people that like their intranet. And it's just something about it being so ubiquitous in companies. Everybody has one, most of them are SharePoint, but everybody loves to hate them. So, people say intranets are the places where content goes to die. As an intranet vendor, we don't find this, we saw it, we were probably even part of it, but we don't want to accept this any longer. We really want to create something that is all new. It's a new approach to the same mission of the 90s, just with modern tools and a completely different approach using APIs. So the biggest difference really would be that this new product, at the surface, it's a workplace assistant. It's an assistant that helps you answer your questions, fulfill your commands. So you can say, book a meeting with so-and-so, and it does that. But beneath the surface of this great experience is an integration platform. So it doesn't have its own silo like a conventional SharePoint or any conventional intranet has, but it actually only exclusively consumes other information. So it doesn't host anything on its own and only taps into other. So in fact, this is not a replacement for an intranet. It's an enhancement of existing intranets. So we're not saying, intranets are boo. Intranets serve a purpose. Intranets do host content. They're great. Just keep the one you have, basically. And if you want to create a digital workplace experience, try to think what are real vertical workflows that people are working with. If you're asking about your leave allowance, you go to a Workday or some kind of HR solution, that is normally another portal, which is not part of the intranet. And I could name you dozens and dozens of use cases where you have to jump between applications just to get a simple answer. And modern intranets are just not very well equipped to handle such complex questions. In fact, you can't even ask SharePoint to show you, well, really anything. It doesn't do natural language processing. It doesn't have the kind of data access that you would expect it to have to show you when your next meeting is, you know.
So with digital assistant, you would be able to do that. So for your old intranet, you could add this kind of new interface that basically helps you out, automates your basic processes, and helps you to find information easier, right?
Correct. So from the perspective of digital assistant, other intranets are just one source of so many sources. Companies use 20 different applications for payroll, shift planning, finance, procurement, whatever you know which applications you use, and they all have APIs. So APIs, or most of them, are starting to get APIs. And it's a standard that's likened to be like USB for data. So kind of standardizes the language with which applications exchange their data. Yeah, right. And that's exactly what we've built our experience on top of. So we just are basically saying, look, you know, you have all of those APIs lying around unused, but now digital assistant comes along and
I got you. So you basically collect these randomly dispersed APIs to one neat system. Okay, I got you. Okay, we already mentioned a few of them, but would you like to elaborate a bit more? Like, which technologies did you implement to this digital assistant? And how would you describe the effects of, for example, AI, automation, robotic business automation? How are they affecting the digital workplace now?
Sure. So in terms of artificial intelligence, there is, from a technological perspective, a lot to mention. So we use natural language processing to understand whole sentences, and then the AI behind it kind of figures out which part of the sentence refers to your entity, which one to the intent. So if it's looking something up, then it knows it needs to execute a search, and then it needs to figure out where. So those kind of things are part of natural language processing, where you basically create an AI model. So the end user, the administrators, they would come up with, 10 to maybe 20 different ways that they can think of that users would ask for a certain question. Right. So, you might say, how much annual leave do I have? If you want to know how much annual leave you have. I might say, how much PTO do I have? Or, hey, I want to book some time off. These are sort of very similar, but not exactly the same ways to ask for the same thing, and that is what natural language processing also needs to account for.
Wow, so does it work a bit similar to Google search?
Actually, precisely. It is predictive, so once you start typing in the first few words of your question, it will actually come back with suggestions saying, hey, if you finish this question, these are questions I have an answer for. So you could actually stop right there and just click on one of the suggestions in the drop-down.
Okay, that sounds really nice, especially for all the employees. And about the employees, for any new thing, there is always this transformation process. How have the users adopted the digital assistant so far? Like, what has been the response?
That's a very good question, and it's probably one of the things we're most excited about. It's because you don't actually have to adopt digital assistant, strictly speaking, because it isn't an app people have to go to. This entire experience is made to be portable, which means, yes, it does have its own app, but it also can be embedded into SharePoint. It runs as chatbots in Microsoft Teams and Slack and WebEx Teams and Facebook Messenger. So wherever people already are is where we want to bring this digital assistant to them, as if it was a real personal assistant. So the adoption is, as close to 100% as you could be, because it's not an app people have to go to. It's just so seamlessly integrated, but be it a Chrome extension in your browser, or if you have Android Auto in your car, you could use it in your car. So it is just so highly flexible and portable.
Wow. Okay, so basically there is no transformation process needed. I guess the people will be happily have it once it eases their life.
It is certainly transformative to use it. It's one of those kind of light bulb moments where once users start using it, it just makes complete sense to them. It feels natural. It's so easy to use. It's super complex with all of this API stuff that's gone on in the background. but the user doesn't have to be affected by that. The user doesn't have to see how many APIs were called to answer their question.
Right.
It just is meant to be a very seamless, user-friendly experience that lives where you already hang out as a user. So you can choose if you have an Alexa at home, use an Alexa. The next person has Android Auto in their car, they can use that. So we're not prescriptive in saying this is the one correct way that you must use it, but whatever you have is just what we would like you to use.
Okay, so bringing the digitalization revolution to every corner and every intranet.
Completely, it's really banking on consumer tech.
Right.
If you have an Alexa at home, great. If you have Google Assistant, Google Home, super. Yeah. You can now check your leave allowance from the comfort of your couch or on your way to work.
Okay, how about, so definitely your system improves the user experience, but how does your digital assistant enhance the collaboration and the innovation process?
Well, it's basically, if you approach productivity from sort of a time scale, then on average, IDC has found users spend or waste, you might say, about 36% of their time looking for and aggregating information across many different applications. Right. So if you can imagine, if you are a big corporation and 36% of your productive time of your employees is wasted, that's a huge waste. So if we found a magical way to even shave off 1% of that 36%, that's where we try and attack the productivity gap by making, asking for, I'm staying with the annual leave example, usually takes you about 3 to 5 minutes to find out an answer to that question, because you have to jump from Intranet to your HR software, log in again, and so on. And in Digital Assistant, it takes 8 seconds. You just say, hey Alexa, what's my allowance? And she tells you, and that's where we give you back valuable time. That's time that's wasted. Normally, there's never been a way before to radically shorten the time to answer such easy questions, supposedly easy questions. And that's where we sort of try and focus on this productivity waste and trying to minimize that.
Okay, perfect. And what are your expectations for Intranet Reloaded Boston?
We love Intranet Reloaded Boston. We've come here before. It's just a great event in a great city. There are very good discussions we've had here with people that are, trying to also see what the future holds for intranets. I think people are very eager to leave behind the sort of old, almost analog feeling experience of intranets. It's kind of getting long in the tooth, and are looking for something that is just, snappy, quick. They can take wherever they want to go, and thus drives user engagement, because really that's all what we want at the end of the day, that users feel they belong to a company, that the company makes their lives easier, not harder. And that's something all of us strive for, and more so at this conference, obviously, because people are here to ask these profound fundamental questions, and that's great.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to have great 2 days and many insightful presentations and discussions coming forward too. Thank you, Henry, so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Appreciate it. Thank you.